Greetings, everyone. I hope to see you all at the Grand Brony Gala this July. Check the description for details.
Indiana Jones.
Daring Do.
Let's get the easy things out of the way first. It's been a long time since I've had to do this, but... Why won't anything like that ever happen to me? This is a representation of the kind of thing that I've always wanted to make, but could never for the life of me get a hold of the resources or manpower required to make it. This movie's very existence throws me into a jealous rage. I love the fact that they were able to secure a cast and crew of at least 20 people, some of which doubled between directing, acting, and technical roles on the set. I love how they were able to get access to the large amounts of land, camera equipment, props, costumes, and vehicles that were needed to tell this story. They took a film that would have cost a professional production crew tens of thousands of dollars and accomplished it for under $1,000. You get an A for effort and bonus points for luck, V2Rocket Productions. It takes a lot of talent to be able to pull this off right. And with that, now we get to the hard part. This was not pulled off right. While the premise is great, just about every part of this project's execution is poor. Starting with the most important thing of any example of entertainment media, the story. Indiana Jones is a hero made out of an ordinary man fulfilling an adventurer's fantasy. Through a lot of screen time, the audience gets an intimate understanding of Indy's character, and connections are formed between both audience and character. Daring Do is handled very similarly in her source material. This might not work as well when translated to the short story format. Keep in mind that, excluding the credit sequence, this film is about 15 minutes long. There's a lot of setting, situation, and stakes that need to be established and not very much time to do it all in. But making this type of adaptation work isn't impossible. That considered, it made a lot of sense at the beginning when V2Rocket Productions assumed that the audience knew the characters and established the other aforementioned factors with a series of overlapping narrations. What didn't make sense, however, was the decision to spend the first 6.5 minutes focused mainly on Dr. Caballeron and his henchmen from the Daring Don't episode as they exposit in great detail the MacGuffin deal that's about to go down. These are characters that the audience is not likely to know or care about. Characters that in any given Indiana Jones movie had a countdown ticking over their head. These are not the type of characters that you should spend half of your short film on, especially when you've got Indiana Jones and Daring Do waiting in the wings. The next big problem with the story is that the featured ancient artifact of astronomical arcane atrocities has no established details other than the fact that it's in a large wooden crate, and I don't find this acceptable for an Indiana Jones film. In the Indiana Jones movies, we always knew exactly what the artifacts were, what they did, and where they fit in the lore, as well as got lots of interaction with the artifacts. Even in the Read It and Weep and Daring Don't episodes where the details of the artifacts were token, we still had a decent idea of what they did. Normally, I don't mind creative reinterpretations of source material for fan works. I've also said on multiple previous occasions that short story formats should be centered around the conflict, but in this case, it's reinterpreting all of the wrong things in a way that causes us to miss vital details in understanding the story. Alongside everything else that I'm about to talk about, as well as multiple other unanswered questions, it just becomes out of place and disorienting. You'd literally get the same result by cutting The Last Crusade until only the scenes with the villain's henchmen and the climax battle remained. Something I would like to touch on briefly before I move on is the animated segment that takes place about 6.5 minutes in, which shows Daring Do entering the human world. I won't talk on it for very long because I don't know all that much about animation, but there's a couple of things that I can tell went wrong here as well. One being that Daring Do's walk cycle is way too fast for the movement of her background and it doesn't look natural. It's also got some issues with interlaced frames, which is a problem that I recognized from any one of my videos before the IDW Comics review. Basically being that the animation sequence and the editing sequence it was put in do not have matching frame rates, causing the video to look jerky. Also, it would appear that Daring Do somehow lost her jacket, wings, and grayscale mane, but at least she still has her trusty sawed-off shotgun that she's always had. Also, what? How in the heck do you forget 3 of Daring Do's signature features while adding on a gun that probably doesn't even exist in Equestria? I honestly can't think of a good explanation for this. That leads me to my next point, which is this movie's characterization. As I said earlier, they gave most of it to Daring Do's nemesis, and none of them appear to be close to the source material at that. Where Daring Don't showed Daring Do's professional rivals having opposing goals, here they have a murderous hatred for her, which makes even less sense when one of them suddenly turns around to save Daring Do at the end. A lot of opportunities were missed in portraying Indiana Jones and Daring Do's characters at their best. These are 2 very similar characters that are shown to prefer working alone and can function well enough while they're on their own, but still need an assistant of some kind whether they acknowledge it or not. And in most cases, their assistants are perfectly capable of keeping up with the adventurers themselves, both physically and intellectually. That mutual need for assistance but desire to work alone usually leads to some great character interactions between the characters and their assistants. Even more potential is lost on Daring Do, who only notices for a moment that she has a different body after crossing through the portal from Equestria.
This is gonna take some getting used to.
I'm guessing then it's only Twilight who has trouble going through that portal. I could think of a dozen ways to make that hilarious without losing the tension of the situation. Then there's the matter of how a character that has been shown to take on armies, fistfight a bunch of large cats simultaneously, break out of several death traps, and then duel with an Aztec beast of legend, gets taken hostage at gunpoint twice.
So let's switch gears for a second and talk about what might happen if you actually tried to hold up a character like Daring Do with a rifle. To help me out, I brought in my friend Nick from the Navy, who, if I'm not mistaken, is probably sneaking up behind me right now with a rifle. Okay. So, we see Daring Do put her hands up, surrender. This is something you actually want to do, but something I believe that she would do is say, hey Nick, how you doing?
Drop your gun, Dr. Jones!
As if the characterization wasn't flat enough, it's not helped at all by the egregious acting demonstrated in this film, which is wooden at its best.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
And quite possibly offensive at its worst.
I'm here speaking on behalf of my superior, Colonel von Heise.
When it comes to acting, it's really not enough to just say a line that the character is known for saying.
Why did it have to be tanks?
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
If your delivery is lacking of posture, lacking of facial expression, lacking of body language, or lacking of even vocal inflection, then your delivery is not going to work. You end up looking more like a costume mannequin rather than the actual character, which is true for most of the characters in this movie. All of the characterization and acting problems I've spent the last few minutes talking about come together like a train wreck in the best use of the expression in this film's choreography, where there was a grievous lack of understanding of how bullets work, how open combat works, and how people tend to react to these situations. For example, if you're being pinned down by enemy gunfire, at what point in time does it seem like a good idea to rush out into an open field in the middle of a maelstrom of bullets? And even if that wasn't a thoroughly retarded idea, don't you think you might want to get across the field at a faster pace than a brisk jog? Don't you think you might be trying to look for cover, watching out for the enemy's position, or literally trying to dodge bullets? Or do you really think that you won't react at all if a bullet bounces off the anti-aircraft gun anywhere near your hand, head, or body while you're trying to aim it? There's a lot of other really common Hollywood-type problems with the choreography and weapons, but you don't need to just take my word for it. Let's see what someone with a little more military experience than I has to say. Irish John, would you mind?
Okay, before we begin, I just want to be clear. I am not an expert in this sort of thing. Okay, the firefight kicks off when Jones throws an M24 grenade at some Nazis and it detonates almost immediately after it hits the ground. Okay, guys, the fuses on those things were about 5 seconds. That was the fastest 5 seconds I've ever seen. Jones then rushes a German anti-aircraft gun, kills the operators, and stands upright for about 5 seconds without getting hit, while Daring Do goes to help him use the anti-aircraft gun for more than 30 seconds, again, without getting hit. It's not impossible, but Jesus Christ, these Nazis couldn't hit a target to save their lives. One of the villains then runs over to a 50 cal machine gun. Okay, a couple of problems here. First of all, why did the Nazis leave a 50 cal and ammo laying around with no gunner? That makes no sense. Second of all, the Nazis didn't even have a 50 cal machine gun in their arsenal. The biggest, most common machine gun the Nazis had was an MG42, and that was 7.92 by 5, not a 50 cal. Third of all, and the most glaring, the machine gun in question is an American model. Come on, you guys! Jones, after using plot armor to cross through enemy fire unscathed, mans a German machine gun while Daring Do starts using a rifle. The Germans just stand upright, not making any attempt to get into cover, while two other guys get waxed. They have no sense of self-preservation. Then a Hetzer pulls up and it's about to get real. So they get on a Pak-40 cannon, fire, and the shell ricochets off the armor. Okay guys, a Pak-40 could have definitely pierced that Hetzer's armor. This is like a wrecking ball bouncing off of a car. Then the Hetzer fires back, hitting the Pak-40's armor. Okay, same problem. That Pak-40 armor would never stand up to a Hetzer round. That thing would have pierced right through it like toilet paper. And even if it didn't, that blast alone would have been enough to kill them instantly. Well, that's my piece on this. If anyone has any rebuttals, thinks I made a mistake, or wants to point out something I missed, feel free to let me know.
My last point is something that I'm a little bit more specialized in, this being the photography and the cinematography. And to make sure that I didn't talk from under my tail, I wrote to V2Rocket Productions Facebook and asked them about the equipment that they were using. They had 4 high-quality cameras on set. They're all great cameras if you know how to use them. And while it's great to have multiple cameras, as I can vouch from first-hand experience that they make the filming of action sequences exponentially easier, it's all lost if the cameras are not the same make and model, or if you don't know how to use them. If the cameras are not the same make and model and you don't understand how to obtain proper white balance and exposure, you get things like you're seeing now, where every single shot looks completely different and often not good at all in terms of color and exposure. Even in the shots that should look the same, the lighting, colors, and even frame rates are noticeably different. So let me explain briefly how you're supposed to film a movie. Once your camera and lighting is set up to the position you want, you set your white balance to get the coloration you want according to your style. For example, an Indiana Jones movie would have warmer Old Western movie style colors that can effectively utilize natural light. You then go down a shot list that's filmed in order of camera movements. The harder shots that involve more camera movement are done first as they are more time consuming. Then, all of the additional coverage is done from one position at a time, getting all of the shots that take place from that angle. Some directors prefer to run entire scenes from beginning to end with each take. This saves production time but can be a little bit more difficult to edit together if you're not using multiple cameras at the same time because no 2 takes are exactly alike.
So switching back to live action for a couple of minutes here, I have my Nikon D7000 and my Nikon D3100 sitting side by side to each other. And you can see that even though they are the same make, they're not the same model and they see the world very differently. The exposure settings and the white balance settings are the same. You can still see how different they are. The same can be said if you switch to a Canon T2i, which is the technical equivalent of a Nikon D3100. What I'm saying here is that different cameras simply see the world differently. So while it does help when you're filming a set to have multiple cameras rolling at the same time, it really only does the trick if they're the same exact make and model. Otherwise, you get picture differences like you're seeing now.
When I first heard about this movie being made, I was quite upset. That was all merely my aforementioned jealous rage though. I was, however, excited at the same time because I wanted to see something like this pulled off. V2Rocket Productions had access to everything they could possibly need and they still botched it on the execution, and I'm just quite upset by the loss of potential. So I reiterate, A for effort, V2Rocket Productions, and I hope that if you see this video, you can take it as a list of things to watch out for during your next production. I know I came down a bit harsh on you guys, but keep in mind that I try to apply my brutal honesty in a way that can foster improvement in those who I critique. You all have a lot of potential if you use your resources properly.
In addition, I would like to thank my friends with the Grand Brony Gala media team, Justin and David here, for helping me film this today, the live action segments. And of course, as always, if you think that I'm wrong or I've missed anything, be sure to let me know so that we may discuss it further.
If you have anything you would like to hear discussed or reviewed, you can drop your suggestions by following BronyBuck on Tumblr or sending an email to bronydebates@gmail.com. Be sure to check out Irish John's channel for some funny short films, as well as MechUser23's channel for some cool gameplay videos, and thank them for all of their support. Feel free to check out my Patreon to see how you can support my channel and what you'll get in return. Big thanks to all of those supporting me already. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.